Hi everyone, I'm Afton Brazzoni and this is the Scribe National Changemaker Conversations interview series. I'm really excited to be here today with Julie Williams, who's actually a colleague now sort of that I've met through the Canadian Women's Chamber of Commerce and fellow entrepreneur. She is based in Ontario and she is the owner of Pretty in Pictures Photography. Hi Julie, thanks for being
Hi,
here
Afton.
today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
So let's start off. If you can just tell everyone a little bit about yourself and about your business.
Sure. So I guess I like to call myself now to give you a bit of background, a chemical engineer by training and a professional photographer by chance and mother to two incredible children by design. So essentially, I practiced engineering for 10 years and took some time off to raise a family. And in that time, the kids were very active in school. I volunteered quite a bit and was photographing the track meets, the school plays, everything, shared the images with the families. And then they would turn around and ask, well, do you do this? Do you do family shoots? And I think about it for a second and then say, sure, I do, right? And that started a beginning of a career in photography and owning my own business, and I never returned to engineering. So it came about quite by accident. And in 2007, I registered the business and have had various successes along the way, because while originally it started out by, it was whenever I had time for it because the kids took priority. And my big break, I guess, came about in 2016. I was awarded the contract to be the official photographer for the town in which I live, and that's the town of Whitchurch-Stouffville. We're northeast of Toronto. We're in the GTA area, essentially. And that has been fabulous in terms of the different genres of photography, because I could be photographing for the fire department, the museum, live entertainment, the Rib Fest, doing corporate headshots. So there are a number of different food photography. So it really gave me quite a well-rounded background. And not only that, the exposure that it provided, because my husband and I moved here about 25 years ago now to Stouffville. And just in terms of just meeting so many more people and being in the face and the forefront, representing the town at all these events, and sometimes being introduced as the official photographer. So it's also given me the credibility and the confidence to expand. And so with quite a bit of networking that I have been doing over this last several years, I have then gone on to do work for other organizations and become their official photographer. For example, the Women's Law Association of Ontario and other organizations. So it really has been fantastic how one small success has led to other opportunities. So I've really enjoyed it. And with photography, for me, it's a combination, a balance of the technical and the creative. So the creative is probably fairly obvious, as you can imagine, but the technical from my side, in terms of my background, there are so many things to be learning in photography: lighting, composition, and different techniques, and different cameras and lenses that you're working with, that it really is every day I'm pushing myself to shoot different things in different ways. And I'm expanding now also to include video, which has been really fascinating, because while one image can tell quite a story, especially with the text, you can imagine video is that much more powerful, because it incorporates the images as well as the audio and motion and everything else. So it really has been, this downtime has been quite an opportunity for me to get very creative and to explore different avenues for revenue streams and collaborations with other people.
Yes, I love that. And it's so important, I think, to being an entrepreneur. And I mean, that's how we met. It's just who's out there, what's possible. And I think it's awesome that you have such a rich experience already and are now kind of like embracing all of those things and kind of shifting it and seeing where it goes.
Yes, thank you.
So on that note, I know that you have made some interesting changes in your business recently. So can you talk a little bit about that and kind of some of the new projects that you're involved in?
Yes, I'd be happy to. So one of the things you and I spoke about was my coffee table photo book. It's that highlights a really amazing historical event in our town in which we successfully broke 2 Guinness World Records. And it was 18 days of sheer heaven because it was the longest continuous concert. And the record at the time was 15 and a half days. And our event organizers decided to just smash it because there was a cafe in Detroit that was trying to reclaim their record, and they had started ahead of us by 6 days. And so, if you go through all that effort and you think that you're not sure how they're going to do, how we're going to do, they, instead of originally they planned for 16 days, they said, no, we're just going to blow it apart and go for 18 days. And every day was a fundraiser for a local charity. And in the end, we were successful in raising over $80,000 in the 18 days. So quite incredible how this one event brought an entire community together. Our town at that time population was probably more in the order of 40,000 people. And the existing record holder was the casino in Nevada. And you can imagine, you can't compare the population sizes. And with Guinness, there are very stringent requirements around each of their records. And for instance, if this is going to be a longest live continuous concert, you had to have something like, 12 people awake at all times. So you can't have people camped out sleeping. And so while I say that at a casino, there's never any issue with people awake and the numbers that they need. In small town Stouffville at 3, 4 in the morning, in the early days, when they started noticing the crowds dwindling, and they were thinking, oh my goodness, this is just the start of it. And they needed people to make sure that the numbers were good. And in walked a busload of senior citizens. It was like an answer to prayer, because who else is awake at 4 or 5 in the morning? So until they could get their channels established, then firefighters and police officers that were on duty at that time would stop in to see if, they needed their numbers boosting up, and they had a telephone line of people that they could call on as the numbers were dwindling. But we made it through straight for 18 days, 2.5 weeks. So I documented this in a coffee table photo book. And one of the things that we have now ongoing in town is a winter song. So a winter festival, 3-day winter festival to celebrate what music has done in our community. And I thought, well, it would be a great time to maybe bring out my book. And I had reached out to my lab, printed up several copies, soft cover and hardcover, just to test out the market. And while it was very well received, and I did sell some of the books, the price point is quite high because photo labs are used to printing one-offs. So in the meantime, I have been reaching out to various printers and publishers, etc., because I want to produce this now on a larger scale. And in fact, my goal is to raise $5,000 for York Region Arts Council through the sale of 1,000 books. And so why is this book relevant now? It's relevant now because while the arts industry is already underserved, underfunded, it has been incredibly impacted, more so at this time because of COVID. You can imagine, all the live gigs that have been canceled, concerts as we know it. Like, when are we ever going to be packed in a room like this again, wall to wall? And so that's one of the big things that spoke to me, is in terms of, as an artist myself, but knowing, we had over 450 artists perform at this event, over 450 volunteers. It brought in you know, so many members from the community outside of the Toronto area. The other record which we broke was for the live continuous feed. So there were friends here who had friends that were watching the feed from an airport lounge in Los Angeles. So we were getting international coverage. It put Stouffville on the map. And I don't know if I'd mentioned to you, so these are the two of the key players that were involved in making this possible. And Kevin Kerr here, who is the owner of Epidemic Music Group, the group that really pushed this to make this possible. This is the epic moment when the record was broken and the arms of the three judges clicking the stopwatch. And David Mills, his mouth can't get any wider. Kevin Kerr, when he saw me put this up at the coffee house, he said, I don't even know what I was looking at. And I said, you were so done. Because after 18 days of being there pretty much almost every day, he said that he had done 80 interviews. And he would just be climbing into bed and his phone would ring and they'd say, you've got to get down here. CTV's here. They want to interview you. You know, so it's stories like these that I wanted to include in the book, because originally it was a coffee table book for me, just as a memento, because I've done, you know, over 30 coffee table books for myself. And it was just a memento for me to highlight this event. And then now this other book coming out, it's titled Stouffville, Music Capital of the World. And I'll show you why in a second. But it really was about including the backstory. Because unless, you know, you're from Stouffville, or unless you were an artist or a volunteer involved in this, it might not mean that much to you. But it certainly has a lot more relevance now, given COVID and the impact on the arts industry. And, you know, people have gone to live entertainment. Everybody can relate to having been to do some sort of live performance. And the fact that we have all been impacted by COVID, and we don't know when we'll be able to be together celebrating and making history like this again for quite some time. So one of the pictures I just absolutely love and I had to take was because of the last day, somebody put up this, you know, handmade sign. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh, yeah, I
right?
see that. Yeah.
So it says #StouffVille Canada, music capital of the world. So while this was the back cover of my book, this will now be the front cover of the book and the title of the book.
Love
right?
it.
So in terms of, that's one of the books that I'm going to be featuring in. It'll be released probably next month.
Okay.
And
Very exciting.
So I'm very excited, right? And also this foray into books, because one of the things I mentioned to you is now also trying to monetize my extensive library of digital images. So I'm going to be doing, you know, travel books and coffee table books and collaborations. I was just at a farm on the weekend and captured some amazing images of the pigs and them feasting at their feeding time, and so collaborating with, Monday I'm going to a lavender farm. So producing documentaries in the way of video, but also presenting that in book form as well. So that's one of the areas that I'm going to be exploring more and coming up with. Also, you know, personalized, whether it's jigsaw puzzles or t-shirts or wall art and posters, so that any of the artists can purchase any of their images in a poster form. Or, you know, this is quite a beautiful wall piece. It's about 30 by 40 inches. That looks quite lovely in a cafe, in your living room, etc. So because I'm also connected with a lab, they can order directly through the lab through my website. Exactly. So it's coming up with creative ways to launch my e-commerce platform.
Yes, and I mean, I think that's what it's all about. And you know, there's so much there in what you've said, because So I worked in the arts for several years. I have so many friends who work in the arts, and I think you're absolutely right about the impact on the industry since COVID. And I mean, the challenges that it faced before, which you mentioned as well. And I think, a book like yours really exemplifies how art, it actually has the power to change the story of a community and to change the whole culture and trajectory of the history. And I think, that's really powerful. And especially like it's just captured so well in that image behind you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it's also, from the entrepreneurship perspective, super exciting to see kind of what opportunities can come up and what other things, how you can, I mean, you're a storyteller at heart, right? So it's like you've taken that and you can, do that in so many different ways, which is fantastic.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it really has been, I don't know if I mentioned to you that this time has been an intentional time to reset and to refocus. And because I'm shooting what I want, when I want to, I'm actually the most creative I have been in a long time. And to me, it's brought back the joy in my craft. I go outside now and I enjoy the the things that maybe would have gone unnoticed before. And I'm seeing all these great images or opportunities for a story or ways to collaborate with people for ideas for a book or a documentary series. And it really is quite an amazing time where it's just living more in the present and appreciating the simpler things in life and enjoying the beauty of the moment and of the surroundings and wherever I'm at. So it really has been a good time in that sense.
Yeah, it's just, that slowing down a little bit. And it sounds like a lot of good has come of that for you. And I think it has, I know that it has been a tough time all around, but I think it's like finding those moments of good, which it sounds like you're definitely doing.
Yes, yeah. And another way, I don't know if I had mentioned to you before, was I'm doing a number of series of posts. So for instance, one of them on LinkedIn, I've been sharing how businesses and families have resumed and pivoted. So for instance, my local library was going to be starting their curbside pickup so that the residents could again start enjoy borrowing materials from the library. So I reached out to the CEO because they're one of my clients, and the library is one of my clients. And I just said, I'd love to document this to be able to share on social media how that you will be able to offer this. And it was amazing because then I could go in behind the scenes and videotape, the signage from the library, how inside they had the table set up with all the books packaged up and labeled for the orders. And then we have a sliding glass door. They had a barricade of tables set up at the doorway. So then when the client came to pick up their order, they could then, meet them across this barricade. They were lined up. And then they could explain to them how the process worked, how they borrowed it, and answer any questions. And then after that was all clear, they could step away, go back into the building, and then the client could come forward and pick up their materials. And so what I also wanted to do, because I'm also very visual, and keeping in mind with the idea that, you needed to practice this 6 foot physical distancing, I spoke with my husband, who helps me out quite a bit on shoots and helps me with, any props or etc. And I said to him, while I had intended maybe drawing circles, 6 foot diameter circles, I didn't think that the library would appreciate me drawing that on their flooring or carpets or wherever we were going to be. So what he did was he took my white backdrop paper and he cut out 6 foot diameter circles. And so that's what I brought. We were able to make up 3 of them, and I placed them on the ground so that as these library staff were interacting among each other and carrying on, you could clearly see, you could visually see what a 6 foot diameter meant. and that they were clearly giving themselves that space. And so this is just one example of how I've been able to feature businesses and how they have successfully incorporated, renewing and reopening, etc. And because at this time, for me, it's about sharing information and celebrating what is good about this time, and about showing how people have pivoted. And for me, it's a lot about community and the networks, whether it's in the women's networking groups that I'm in or local businesses. For me, it's always been about sharing what and celebrating their successes and helping to promote them on social media. And so that's what that's what I've continued to do, and it's just one of the series of posts that I've been doing.
I love that. It's a moment in time that I think hopefully will end, and that we'll be able to look back. But that's why it is so important to have those visuals documented, those stories documented, so that we can see kind of like what that all meant and how people responded and how life changed. And I think it's really just meaningful. Like even the anecdote you shared about the 6-foot circles, it's like, well, yes, how did that look? How did that manifest in the world? So yeah, I think it's great that you're doing that, and obviously great exposure for the businesses that you're featuring as well.
Yes.
So what advice would you have for other business owners, either in your industry, working in the arts, or otherwise, who are kind of trying to navigate everything and get back on their feet?
I would say what's really important right now is for everybody to slow down and really, while most of the businesses have resumed and have reopened, and certain areas maybe not as quickly, for instance, in Toronto and in those centers, we really need to still continue to practice good hygiene, hand washing, wearing, masks when appropriate, when we're indoors or when we cannot maintain that minimum 6-foot distance. And then also to be, I think, be respectful and sensitive at this time, because, people have suffered, whether it's job losses or their homes or lives, that we all need to process it, and it takes a different amount of time for the individual, and that we need to be sensitive to that, and that we still need to be kind and reach out. I try to keep in touch with clients, with people in the community, and check in with them, whether it's through text or a phone call or an email, and just to see how they're doing, and to let them know that I'm here if they need to talk. Or my husband has taken advantage of the time to expand our backyard garden and built another box. And often you should see it. I am amazed. There is so much good that has come out of this. I enjoy when I see all these families out bike riding, enjoying their backyard. When you think about it, hot tubs, pools, backyard furniture, all these things are in such demand right now. Bikes, because people are going back to a simpler life, and because we're fairly limited with our travel, they are now appreciating their home space, whether it's the front porch or the backyard. And I see so many swings on the front porch. And so that's also another series that I've been documenting, is how families have been enjoying this time. And so it is really important for us to stay healthy, stay fit, and get fresh air, and keep in touch with our neighbors, and look out for each other, and to listen. There's a time to speak, but there's always a time to listen. And because to listen and observe, because while some people it doesn't come as easily to ask for help, you can hear in their voices and in their actions if they're hurting, and try to figure out ways, just baking muffins for them or cookies, or like what I did last week is just cutting, the kale and the arugula and the tomatoes and dropping them off to neighbors, right? Just small things that make a big difference to let people know that you care.
Yeah, that's such an important sentiment, I think, Julie. It's, you really seem to have a lot of just wonderful examples of, living a creative life, living a life that considers others. And I think both of that is very important right now. So thank you so much for speaking with me today and sharing. Can you actually just let everyone know your website or maybe the best social channels to get a hold of you?
Sure, thank you. So it's Julie Williams. I am the owner, chief photographer, visual storyteller at Pretty in Pictures. My website is prettyinpictures.ca, and my social handle I've gotten since we last talked, I'm on Instagram now. So my handle is at Julie Williams Visual Storyteller, and I am on Facebook as the visual storyteller, and on LinkedIn as well. You will find me under Julie Williams. So thank you very much for this time. It's been lovely chatting with you, and I look forward to connecting again in the future.
Yes, absolutely. So everyone, there you have it, all the ways you can connect with Julie. Keep an eye out for her book as well. And I'll be back in 2 weeks with another Changemaker interview. So thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Take care.
Take care. Thank you, Afton.